Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you a shoutcast and game 2 in a series between WE Loner and MacSec here on Typhon Peaks. Loner spawning as the red Terran on the bottom left hand side of the map, meanwhile MacSec spawning on the top left hand side of the map as the yellow Protoss. So Protoss versus Terran here on Typhon Peaks, and I am very interested to see this particular matchup. I do not get to cast that many games on the new ladder matches or new ladder maps now, and I am curious to see how these destructible rocks will be used. These two destructible rocks will open up a very easy access point into your opponent's natural expansion here, and right here as well, as opposed to trying to run around while activating this Xel'Naga watchtower. Production tab is now up for you guys who always complain that there is no production tab. Production tab is now up, and we should be getting up a barracks in just a moment, perhaps closer to that front door. Now, if you guys have not played on this map already, there are only 4 spawning locations. The other spawning locations are here and here, top left, top right, and bottom right hand side of the maps. There is some brush right here, and with that brush, it is very easy to hide units or hide proxy barracks. It's even possible to warp in a pylon on the low ground and then try to place gateways on that high ground. The only problem is you have to scout your opponent early to figure out if that is the strategy, and then you almost have to blindly place down a pylon in order to do so. MacSec will quickly be scouted out by Loner's SCV, and we'll see what exactly the SCV will be able to gather and collect for the upcoming battle. It pretty much sees that MacSec is going a standard build, and getting that gateway, already has that second pylon up, should be getting another getting that Cybernetic core in just a moment. There it is on the backside. And now, based upon MacSec and how he likes to build his buildings, I'm assuming a pylon will be built here at some point as well. No Zealot being trained though, so World Elite's Loner is just going to be able to continue to wander around here for a little bit more time. He does see that a second gateway has been warped in as the probe now making its way south. There is a Marine now on the low ground as the tech lab is now down, and I like this play that I've seen. If you've ever wondered why you would leave the Marine on the low ground, it is so the probe does not come up onto the high ground and see if you built a tech lab or what other buildings you are building. Loner now also going for another Reaper expansion, and what it looks like to be a Reaper expansion, may be able to get some damage, but with 2 gateways down and now a Stalker already being warped in, I do not think that Reaper will be able to do much of anything. 1 Marine still sitting on the ramp, that Reaper nearing completion. As we are now getting stim pack research, we should be getting some additional Araxes in just a moment, but this is all off of double gas. So double gas, are we gonna see an actual actually more Marines? This is an unorthodox style of play, as we are now going into a factory while researching that stim pack. So he's getting that stim pack rather early, and it's not going to really pay off for him for quite some time. The Reaper now going to jump up onto that high ground. There is already a Stalker laying in wait, and MacSec must have gotten the memo on what Loner likes to do. Loner now wandering around here, gonna be able to jump up this cliff and now come into this location. The Stalker was looking to be ready, and now the Reaper may be able to get some form of damage into this base already. There is a lot of pylons and a lot of units blocking the path, and now poor Reaper, second time around. At first you don't succeed, die again, if you guys didn't see the last game. More Marines now being trained. We are going into a reactor now, and also going into a starport. So what I expect to see is I guess a cup game with these tech labs at some point. The starport will lift off, go over to the barracks that has the tech lab. The tech lab will move down, take the reactor, and then the factory most likely will just lift off and try to do some scouting. I can't imagine Hellions being trained. Banshees are a high possibility. And then the reason why he went for early stim pack and is now finally getting more racks is so that he can doubly train more Marines. So there you go. Oh, he's actually getting the tech lab onto the factory. So this may actually be siege tanks. Is it going to be siege tanks? Double training Marines, going for siege tanks, siege tech, and going for a medevac. All right, so it's only a 2 swap, not a 3 swap. No cup game there by any stretch of the imagination. Zealot Stalkers and Sentries just hanging around on the low ground, waiting for this Nexus to be completed. Hallucination, which is now being used even more frequently as a very active scouting mechanism, should help out tremendously. You can see another reactor being built by Loner, so Loner going for Stim Pack, not even bothering for the combat shield. And I'm curious as to how that is going to work. If he doesn't have the combat shield, his units are not going to be able to absorb nearly as much damage. Dying to 5 shots from a Stalker instead of 6, and then Zealots, I believe, actually being able to kill it in 3 hits instead of 4. I'll have to take a look at those numbers once again, as an SCV now wanders straight into an army of Sentries, Zealots, and Stalkers. Marines now on the move. There is a Phoenix nearby, and with that Phoenix nearby, the Marines are going to perhaps just try to destroy these destructible rocks, and then the siege tank can also come into this position, siege up, and try to destroy these rocks here, as more units are still being rallied to and trained up once again. So there are a lot of siege tanks, and Loner macroing up off of one base will be able to get a lot of damage in here in just a moment. How is MacSec going to respond? MacSec now trying to warp in 2 additional gateways, but will it be enough? He does also have a robotics facility, but he is currently supply locked and now needs to warp in 2 pylons. So this is going to be a very, very slow time for him, as those siege tanks are going to perhaps, siege up. 2 of the siege tanks are going to siege up now down over here and now gain sight. The siege tanks are going to take a little bit of a blast. Marines now being dropped in as well. So those Marines are now able to scout out that high position. These Marines perhaps are going to stim. No, not stim just quite yet, as more units still coming in from the rear. And as soon as these rocks are now taken down, I believe those Zealots need to charge in at this time, but I do not think that he knows that the Zealots are not, or the siege tanks are not sieged. So 1 siege tank now sieging up. The rest of the siege tanks need to siege. Marines now stimming and now pulling back. There is a force field there. Force field on top of a siege tank as well, so kind of protecting it from the Zealots, actually, as both sides battling out. The probes now trying to join in. The Marines now coming into the rear as well. Force fields do not protect against Stalker attacks, and now Loner, and I do not know if he's going to be able to fend off this attack army-wise. He does not have very much. 850 versus 1225. There are a couple Marines left, and that is it. And the Medevac's now trying to go into full retreat. Siege tank needs to siege up, and perhaps right in this location to try to ward off against this attack. But the Stalkers are going to continue to push, shooting down another Medevac. Luckily, nothing inside it there, as the Stalkers are now trying to push in, and oh, that's going to be some damage. Another round of attack, and down goes 1 Stalker, but not going to be enough as those Marines continue to try to pull away. The Medevac able to pick up those units, and now 2 siege tanks here. Things are not looking good for Loner at all, as a command center is now being built. So, mass Marines with siege tanks and Medevacs off of 1 base play. The Medevac now out of energy. The Marines unable to thwart that attack, even though MacSec was supply locked for a little bit of time, running off of 5 gateways and 1 robotics facility. An observer now making its way in, and it looks like that observer wants to perhaps deal more damage and just get as much scouting information. Obviously the observer cannot deal damage, but by scouting, Loner or MacSec will be able to produce the proper counter units and deal more damage. I know the damage attack rate on an observer. Tech Lab now being built on Loner's starport, and Marines just hanging around on that front door. We may be getting a Raven as well, as siege tanks and more Marines are still being trained. Loner now trying to push out with another attack force here. It should be scouted out in just a moment. There is a pylon and a probe activating this Zelnaga watchtower, and as the units move out, Loner not trying to do anything fancy, just trying to establish his expansion. Should be able to establish the expansion with little to no problem at all. More units still need to be trained though, and now you can see more Marines, siege tanks, SCVs, and now a little bit, once again, another game of just a hopscotch as we finally get a barracks with a tech lab in order to research that combat shield. Stalkers and sentries are off here to the side, and now Zealot charge being researched. Charge on those Zealots are going to be able to barrel their way through very easily, especially if the siege tanks are not sieged, or even if they are unsieged, they're not going to be able to deal that much damage. 1 SCV now trying to wander around on the inside, going to get quickly taken down as the army units are now in full retreat once more. Medevacs are in the air. The Marines are in position. Are the siege tanks going to be able to siege up in time? They need to siege up within range of something, and now turning around, getting some damage. The Medevacs need to unload that cargo once again as the Marines are now down in position. And now Loner just pushing out with a very, very large group, but this is going to be attacked from the back as well. The Stalkers now trying to come in from the back and coming in from over here. So the Marines need a stim, and this is going to be a problem as there's going to be a pincer attack. Units in the front and the back. The Marines, however, are going to have their way against those Immortals, as those Immortals are not going to be able to deal all that much. And now the Sentries and the Stalkers coming in here, and the timing on Loner pulling back with those Marines was absolutely critical, able to finish off the rest of these Stalkers here. One Stalker now trying to run away. 3 Marines saying hi to the Stalker instead of attacking. Finally turning around, attacking it. There it goes. And it looks like Loner able to take that battle and wins the game here. So at first I thought that MacSec was going to be able to win that by trying to squeeze play Loner. But instead, Loner, because MacSec tried to split up his army like that, the Stalkers, which walk a little bit faster than Zealots, especially without the Zealot charge, got in front, and they got pummeled by the siege tanks first. As soon as they got pummeled by the siege tanks, Immortals try to come in from the front, and the Marines were like, I'll take on an Immortal any day. So the Marines were able to deplete the shields of the Immortals, and then the rest of the siege tanks were able to finish them off. And that is ultimately how Loner was able to win this game and now force a game 3 in this, what I now know to be a best of 3 series. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this 1v1 replay between MacSec and Loner here on Typhon Peaks.